Phillip Davis, Ancestry Lands, AncestryLands.com. How are you, folks? Good morning. Today I come to you in a more serious and somber tone. A note, I've been made aware as I become more successful. I interact with people, I meet people, or people find me. And sometimes you cross people in your lives that have come from your past. And being 43, it's very different. And this is definitely going to hit home with the younger people, because in 20 years, you're going to see where your life is going to, how it's going to pace out. And when I say pace out, I mean, now that I'm 43, when I started off and I graduated college, I meet sometimes people from my past, and the first thing I ask them is, tell me about your journey, especially if I haven't talked to them in a while. I want to know where life has taken them through the years in my absence. Did they fulfill great promise? Have they gone astray? Or have they maintained what was the status quo? And some people do move into the normalcy of life. They get a family, wife, kid, job, and everything is living within the day moment. And then you have some people like myself, Don Coombs, and a host of others that have been able to kind of do that, and then also add on some business, aspects of their lives. People might move away from a 9-to-5, or people do things that are very interesting in their lives that you never expected. And sometimes some people, they don't make it out. They're not able to move or elevate into society and find their place. We have mental health, or people who don't adjust. And through some conversations that I have had with people whom have looked up to me in the past, you can see people struggling. And it's very heartbreaking to see that, because sometimes you see people who you thought would end up not where they are. They would end up at a better place in life, or you had higher expectations for them, and you can see that they can't piece it all together. And I don't say anything to ridicule anyone. I say that as a somber note, because there is a part of me that naturally people move away from people like that. The world tends to leave people like that behind, because the self-preservation is there, or you always want to preserve yourself first. But it becomes a point where that happens so much that it ends up being that it becomes ever more present in all of society, where you're no longer able to move away from it, because it starts to corner into your life. Meaning, it can touch your family, it can touch your friend circle, it can be at your job, it can start to be in society, and it will incrementally creep up to the point where it is now observable in your reality. And there is a responsibility to each and every one of us to maybe do micro parts, I guess. I don't know. I don't have the answers for this. I don't. But it definitely disturbs something within myself, where there's not a lot I can do. And as a nurse, one of the things that a nurse has a hard time with is the feeling of being helpless. It's something that we struggle with, because nurses are people who are supposed to be guardians from those who might be at death's door. As a nurse, I've been in situations where someone has temporarily crossed over into the other side, and my instincts kick in to perform life-saving measures that is supposed to defeat and, combat and bring people back from that other side. Not as a god, but as a human who understands life-saving measures and has been in not CPR, but, ACLS, or advanced cardio life-saving measures, where I'm able to actually, perform chest compressions, do cardioversions and shock therapy, in order to bring people back from the other side, from what will be the final breath. So that ability to be able to intervene in that process, to challenge death in a way, temporarily now. This is not I can't do anything about death's call, but sometimes I might be able to change his mind. Temporarily, again. And that feeling of helplessness, powerlessness, with people who suffer from something of the mind is much harder to deal with. And a lot of times what I've noticed in these conversations, it comes from something that breaks when people are very young. You know, as parents, we have to be mindful of the traumas that we impress upon our children, and we just want them to deal with it. And I think that comes from a place that we don't get past our own trauma. I'm going to try to put a picture in here to kind of explain that a little bit more, what I mean. There's an old painting about a man who's trying to save his drowning father. And his father is reaching up to him, trying to get him to grab his hand. And at the same time, while the man is focused on trying to save his father, reaching down into that water where his father's drowning into, his wife and infant son or daughter, the wife is trying to hold up his son and give his son to them. But he's so focused on his father, who is elderly, and he's not looking towards his future. And when I saw this, I related it to my own life, of that sometimes people are too focused on their past pain to create a pleasant future. That'll probably be the title of the video now that I've come to it. Sometimes we're too focused on our past pain to create a future that is pleasant for us to move on from. We hold on to that trauma, hold on to that pain, and we bring it forth, and it affects the relationships that we're supposed to have, that are supposed to be pleasant, that are supposed to be fruitful, that are supposed to be healing us, because we weren't able to heal as a son, but we're able to be a better father to our sons. And it's very interesting that picture. I'm going to put it up, and I'm going to keep it up while I'm talking. And I want you to look at that picture and understand the symbolism that holds with that, because it's not just about the father with the son, it's the wife with her daughter or with her son, because trauma is afflicting in both sexes. And that's one of the bigger issues. And it's something that parents and people have to be keenly aware of. We bring trauma to our relationships. And a lot of times people seek external help without any internal resolution. People seek external help, but really they do a half-ass job of getting the help. They'll seek the Bible, but won't go to church. They'll seek church, or they'll seek medicine, but they won't seek therapy. They'll do a half effort at really getting a good job of healing themselves. It's like getting antibiotics and taking them for one day. One of the things in medicine we always tell you is, no matter what the doctor prescribes you for antibiotics when you're sick, finish the whole prescription. Don't stop when you start to feel better, because you give the disease or the disorder or the illness a chance to come back and get stronger. And simply put, in war terms, you need to annihilate the disease. You don't want to leave it weakened. And sometimes we do that thinking that we're better today, everything must be fine, and it's good to go. It's the same thing with dieting, right? I've done this myself. I start to lose a little weight, then I go right for a pizza. Today's a great day to start cheating. And then I wonder why I've got the 5 pounds back on, and now I got to go back to work. I'm back to square one. And people do that a lot, and they're not centered on that. But I've looked at it is that no one who has, and I'm going to say just my observation, no one who I've seen in my own life who has suffered in their mind has suffered because their mind was just truly broken. I've never seen anyone in my life that has suffered from problems within themselves that has suffered because they were born broken. You may not agree with that, but if you really look back to it, there seems to always be a source, and it generally is a parent. Always is a parent. Someone breaks them internally, and it splices their very soul. And it's crazy because you get into the generational aspect, and people rarely ever address that in a way that prevents it from being passed on. And it's so sad because, again, we become parents to oversee, guide, teach, direct, supervise, instruct, reprimand, criticize, judge our children, to give them all the facets of life, both good and bad, of what they're going to encounter into the world. And sometimes, even if you can have a parent be completely harsh, and you can have a parent can be completely nice, and people will maladjust to those extremes, those polarizing opposites, and they will still encounter the world and end up in the same room, the same broken room. Because the parents that raise their kids to see everything as nice under the parents' wealth and affluence doesn't understand the world when they interact with it, and it shows them negativity. In the same way that people are raised in gun violence and in broken homes, when they get into a positive relationship, they're not able to adjust because of the brokenness that they've been exposed to. The first time they get something that is supposed to work, they automatically think it's going to break. They anticipate it breaking. And in that anticipation, they actually become that which they thought would happen. They manifest that destiny because they preemptively break it because they're used to things just being broken. So if it's working for a while, they'll initiate breaking it just to make sure it fits the routine. And that's because something was broken a long time ago and it never got fixed. They were never made to understand that this is something that happens and we got to do a good job of fixing it. You know, you spill something, you just don't leave it on the floor spilt. You go and clean it up, right? You teach your kids to clean up. Sometimes with my kids, they have something like, you know, and I do this with my children a lot, when it comes time to put batteries and you got to screw them in, I make my kids do it. I want them to get in the habit of, you know, figuring things out, like puzzles and stuff like that. So their mind can start to develop critical thinking skills and abstract thinking skills in order to problem solve. I've also started doing certain things with my youngest son, the near 2-year-old, where I will give him a little bit more complex instructions, such as not just bring me the green ball. You know, now at 2, can you take the green ball and put it on the couch? Like he's got the green ball, he's trying to get that, and he'll go and take it somewhere else because he's not been given further instructions. So I'm trying to build some concrete or abstract things, and I'll say couch, touch couch, put the green ball on the couch. And eventually, after some patience, he'll try to do it. And I think the other component is, parents, we need to spend time with our kids. You know, when I'm working, I have to always make sure I'm around my kids. I'm not always in another room. I'm always in the same room with my children when I'm working. So I'm kind of listening in, and sometimes I'll watch what they watch. Sometimes I'll play games what they play, and I play video games, board games, tons of things. And my kids and I, we're there's a part of us where it's like I'm a way big, like dad can be a kid sometimes. And that helps break the barrier of, I'm your parent, I'm not your friend, or whatever else. I'm not their friend, but I'm friendly. It's not all dad is this, you know, God on Olympus, Zeus, who can't laugh, who can't smile. You know, one thing that I talked about is that, you know, I was sitting in there, I'm working, my kids are playing video games, so everybody's locked into the monitors, and I hear thunder outside, lightning storm, and I said, hey guys, let's open the blinds and let's just sit back away from the window a little bit and let's watch the lightning storm and see if we can catch lightning on the screen. And we actually did. I'll put that in the video too as well. And the kids were watching it, and it was like we were looking for lightning bolts. And I started telling them how when I was a kid, I was their age, to give them some relation. I used to think that when it, I was young, when it was lightning, it was God was angry. I didn't know about the myth of Zeus and Thor, and I didn't have that mythological education at that time. And I thought when it rained, God was sad, God was crying. That was my interpretation as a child, trying to understand weather patterns. So what I'm saying this is that a lot of the mental health, at least anecdotally what I see in my experience, and this is not professionally as a nurse, but this is just as a human being, sitting down and not quickly getting off the phone with people who have mental health issues and actually exploring some things, lightly exploring. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I have enough nursing experience to query people in ways that can get them to discuss things that most people feel uncomfortable about. And what I'm looking for is honesty with them. And I see that, a lot of times they shy away from their golem, which I've talked about. Golem, like in Lord of the Rings, the guy, my precious, he's talking to himself and he's having a hard time. It's like two separate people that keep secrets from each other, but they talk. One's got a plan and one has to let the other in on the plan. So a person is not even aware of themselves. They are not all themselves. There's another person occupying that. And they don't commune with that identity that they have. It is a separate voice speaking to them, not a voice in which they commune with and they dominate, and the voice is supposed to follow them. We talk to ourselves, but I don't always hear. My subconscious is part of myself, but what I do is try to make sure that my subconscious is not my enemy. I try to make sure that my subconscious it's not going to lead me in places that I do not want to go. And as parents, we have to do a better job of actually spending time to talk with our children. And when I talk about the thunderstorms, I mean pulling my children away and spending a moment in the presence. In the presence of the present. Meaning that I'm talking about, sorry, I always got to manage the lighting in here. I'm talking about being present in the moment. And my daughter appreciated that time we spend. Even my kids, like when your kids start to get a little bit older, like 8, 9, and 10, they're going to start developing and they're going to learn things from other friends. And you're going to see them start taking on a personality. You're going to have little words they saying, little songs they sing, little references, how they refer to each other. And they're going to have little ways that they interact. And I pick up on that. They're going to do little goofy things, and I'm goofy with my kids. Just doing the whole little thing with your eyes crossing, and, I'm like, da, 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 and my kids are laughing and cracking up. And that laughter is a thing that my children and I share. It's a beautiful thing. And although I reprimand my children, I discipline my children, I don't abuse my children, but I discipline them to make sure they understand that they are to follow instructions and take correction in order to avoid destruction. And that's done because I'm identifying things that they will have to meet in life, and sometimes the outcomes could be deadly. So they need to understand that the discipline I'm instilling in them is the first form of what I don't want to say violence, but negativity or violence, a light form of that can escalate up to becoming deadly. And they have to be able to identify that. Because the world will give them that lesson if you do not teach them and prepare them for how to understand signs that violence is upon them. So, and it breaks my heart to see people who have not fulfilled their lives with the outcomes or the achievable outcomes that maybe it was intended for them. Maybe that was the life's intention, or maybe, you know, they didn't pass the tests that we all have to pass in order to succeed. And there's many others that I don't know that maybe have gone through the same thing. But I will say that having that knowledge, checking in on people, is something that you got to do. You got to check in on people, man. Just, hey, man, how's everything going? Shoot them a text, something like that, man, because it's okay to say the world is suffering and it's not me until it's at your doorstep. And you also have to take a little inventory within your own life to say, let me stop and appreciate that I'm not in that same situation, because it literally can be any of us. Be thankful to whatever you believe in or don't believe in, even if it's only you believe in yourself, that you had the strength to overcome your trials in life. And there will be more. There will be more trials. There always will be trials for us. Phillip Davis, Ancestry Lands. Reach out to someone and just say, hey, man, hope you're doing okay. Or, hey, girl, hope you're doing all right. Keep your head up. Phillip Davis, Ancestry Lands. I hope you've been somewhat awakened in making sure that we are not only in the world for ourselves, but we also can be somewhat of a call or a helpline to others. So that way the world doesn't feel, or they don't feel like the world's left them behind. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and I hope this video has been inspirational to those that would see some benefit or be able to relate to what I'm talking about, or might know someone else that is going through this and will reach out to them. Phillip Davis, Ancestry Lands, and I'm out. Peace.